This video is about whether you can get sick from cold weather. And I'm the type of person, I'm 47 years old. All my life, I attribute illness to cold weather. And I read, and there's the general belief among the medical community is that it's not possible. And it's complete bull. When I was a kid, I read a study that someone had done where they had a giant vat of water with clear glass, and I saw photos of it too. And they put people naked in this vat of water, and I guess it was reduced temperature. And they left them there for long periods of time, like hours. And then they would say, okay, we've determined that cold temperatures do not make people sick. And I was like, well, that's a healthy person. How many people did you test it with? I seem to recall the test was done with 2 people. That's not a valid test. Other people don't get sick when it's cold. So then there's the other thing where they say, well, you can't get sick in the cold weather because there has to be a virus present. So therefore, it's not possible. People who say this are stupid for 2 reasons. Number one, having a virus doesn't make you sick. The virus can already be in you. You go outside, it's too cold, you come back and you get sick. So that's not an argument. Number 2, there's something called hypothermia, which is being sick from cold weather without a virus. I lived in New York. I stood outside at 6 a.m. in the wintertime, and it gets down to negative 40 degrees. When it gets to negative 40 degrees, actually the rule is if they can't start the bus, they cancel school. There were lots of mornings when we sat out there in the freezing cold for years. I went to school. I walked to school for many years when I was in elementary school. I don't think I took the bus home. I remember walking. I walked every day. So we're talking about on and off up to 12 years, cold weather waiting for the bus. In the summer, I would ride my bike. So I'm exposed to cold weather. And often I would go outside not properly dressed. When I was in high school, on the coldest days, I'd put my hat on. I went to a school with 4,000 students. Nobody else would ever have a hat on. I was one of the few. Often, like if you're going to go outside because you got to get something out of the car, might not put my jacket on. I might run outside, get something out of the car, come back inside. But it's not just the cold weather in the wintertime that makes me sick. A fan blowing on me can make me sick, or the air conditioner. I hate air conditioning, or leaving the window open. And I've had so many times where I've left the window open, fell asleep, and woke up with chills. And I would be sick sometimes for months. The worst was 6 months, and it was absolutely horrible. And I went to the doctors, and they said, there's nothing wrong with you. Well, the best thing to do is just let it go. It'll be over in 2 weeks. It's been 6 months. And I had so much problems with American doctors who just are in denial about being sick from cold weather. And I'm like, I came in here, you checked my blood pressure. You put that thing over my heart, the stethoscope. You hit my knee with a hammer, and then you said I'm not sick and you're not going to do anything. That's just absolute BS. You did no diagnosis whatsoever. And I asked another medical professional, I said, what do you do in this situation? And she said something about a biopsy. She said there's something that you can do, maybe it was a biopsy, where they take something from out of the stomach, and they can tell if you have a virus. I think the question might have been, how do you know if you have a cold virus? And she explained to me the process. And I'm like, why didn't they do this when I went to the hospital? And I was so sick. It's not fun to go to the hospital when you're in bed sick. This was the worst illness I ever had in my life. I literally thought every day I was going to die. And I'm addicted to the internet. And I was so sick that I did not use the internet for weeks. I would just lay in bed. And when I am laying in bed, I use the computer. I put my laptop on the bed. But in this case, I was so sick, I didn't even want to use the laptop in the bed next to me. That's how sick I was. I always had to have a heater in my room, etc. So I learned a lot of treatments. But I'm going to okay. So one night I left the window open and woke up shivering. And it wasn't the next morning in this case. Got really sick. Doctor refused to help me. I knew I was sick. And a week later, I went to South America, a warm city. I get better when I'm in a warm city. It's like 80 degrees, but I still had to wear a sweater, when I went outside, even though it was 80 degrees. And I went to the doctor and I cried with them. And I got to the point where I was crying because I didn't know what to do because they just didn't believe me and they didn't speak English. And this doctor came up to me and said, "What's the problem?" And I explained it to him and he gave me a prescription and it worked and my problem went away. And then there was another case where I was sick. There was one time when I went to 7-Eleven. I was in Miami. It was January, and it was cold outside. And it was cold enough that I think I had bought a heater for using inside. So I bought this spicy chicken for breakfast at the 7-Eleven because there was no other food in the neighborhood. I walked across the street, got in the car, went to work. It warms up in the daytime, but it's cold at night. The spicy chicken revved up my metabolism. I wouldn't say that I was like, I got so much energy, but I could feel the warmth in my body. If you know what I'm talking about from spicy foods, that's what this chicken did. I got home. It was 6 p.m. I was in the hotel, and my body was warm. It was burning. And I had my clothes on, and I just plopped down on the bed. Didn't get under the sheets because I was so hot. And I fell asleep, woke up at 9 p.m., freezing cold, shivering, immediately got under the sheets. And I was like, I know I'm going to get sick. I'm shivering. It's the point that I get cold enough that I start shivering that I get substantially sick. And I don't remember what led to what, but there was one time when this happened where left the window open, fell asleep when it was cold, woke up shivering, and I had gone to see a doctor. This might have happened in South America, and they took an x-ray of my lungs, and they said, "You have a lung infection." And I said, and this is where I'm in my 40s. And I said, I get this problem every year since I remember this happening when I was like 16, where I'm very sensitive to cold to the point where I'm in a room with anyone. I used to fight with my roommate over the temperature because it was too hot for him, and he would open the window in the wintertime, and it was too cold for me. So this is the first time someone offered to take an x-ray, and I was like, could I have had lung infections all these years? And the symptoms that I had, the shivering, need to take hot showers or be in the hot water all day, have to wear immense amounts of clothing, going through the hot spell and the cold spells and the hot sweats, and then I would be coughing, and the cough would last for 2 months, and I would cough up phlegm. Same thing every year, my entire life, going back years and years and years. And this was the first time when someone offered to do an x-ray. So I had the lung infection. They gave me medicine. Guess what happened? It went away. All the other times, it would last for months and months and months. I think maybe the cough didn't go away because someone gave me cough medicine, and you cough with your diaphragm. You could cough right now, and your diaphragm goes, you feel the muscle contract. The cough medicine prevents your muscle from contracting, so you don't cough. But guess what? Then you can't breathe. At least that's what happened with me. The cough medicine made it so that I had trouble breathing. I had to force myself to breathe. So that's why I don't take the cough medicine, which doesn't cure you of your cough. It just makes it so your body is incapable of coughing. One thing that I did do 5 years ago is I stopped drinking carbonated beverages. Another video that I did. And I used to be more sensitive to the cold. I became less sensitive to the cold as the years went by, to the point where now I'm not as sensitive to the cold as I used to be. I don't mind air conditioning, and I would sleep with air conditioning on sometimes, and I don't mind the fan blowing on me anymore. So that's my experience. Anyone who tells you you can't get sick from the cold doesn't know what they're talking about.